Every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand.
Well, Greenland, a big topic in Davos. Joining us now from Davos, Switzerland, is NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Mr. Secretary General, thanks. Welcome back to Special Report. You know, the president had his meeting.
Thank you for having me back on the show.
Sure. He had his meeting with you, the bilat meeting, and he came out of there and said, we have formed a framework of a deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the broader Arctic. What does that framework look like, sir?
Yes, but what we basically discussed, how can we implement the president's vision on protecting, yes, Greenland, but of course it is not only Greenland, it is the whole Arctic. And as you know, there are 8 countries in the Arctic, Russia, which obviously is not in NATO, and 7 other countries, including the United States and Canada, but also 5 countries in Europe who are in that Arctic region. How can we collectively make sure that we defend that Arctic region, therefore implementing his vision of that necessity? And he's totally right there, because we know that the region is opening up more and more. The sea lanes are opening up more and more for the Russians and the Chinese and other adversaries to be active there, which is potentially a threat.
You know, getting from point A to point B, though, seems like it may be a challenge. I did get a statement just before this interview from the Danish foreign minister. He said this: the day is ending on a better note than it began. We welcome that President Trump has ruled out taking Greenland by force and paused the trade war with Europe. Now let's sit down and find out how we can address the American security concerns in the Arctic while respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. I think it's the red lines that are the issue there. Here are some other European leaders weighing in.
I think it's sad and totally absurd that we have an American president who's blackmailing the rest of us, trying to get a piece of land.
So many red lines are being crossed that you have the choice between your self-respect. Being a happy vassal is one thing, being a miserable slave is something else.
Well, it's some tough words there from Davos. How do you get to yes, Mr. Secretary General?
Well, I mean, what is at stake here, as I said, is basically 2 things we have to work on. One is to make sure that the Arctic is protected. This is our 7 allies, including the United States, working on that, implementing that part of what the president has been pushing for. I would argue tonight with you on this program. He was the one who brought the whole of Europe and Canada up to this famous 5% at the NATO summit in The Hague, which is crucial for us to equalize our spending with the US, but also to protect ourselves. And this is the framework which you see in his post. We will work on.
So I hear you on that and expanding maybe U.S. military presence, but what I don't hear is Greenland still, is it still under the Kingdom of Denmark in this framework deal?
That issue did not come up anymore in my conversations tonight with the president. We very much focused on what do we need to do to make sure that that huge Arctic region, where change is taking place at the moment, where the Chinese and Russians are more and more active, how we can protect that. That was really the focus of our discussions.
Right. And obviously there's the energy exploits that possibly come out of Greenland. There is the Golden Dome, as you're talking about, protecting against missiles in the hemisphere. But as you talk to Greenlanders, and we are on the ground there, they don't seem like they can be bought off. And there's only 57,000 residents. Mr. Secretary General, how does this get resolved?
Well, I think tonight was a good night, and we have a good agreement to really start working on these issues. And that means that we both agreed, when you look at NATO and what NATO collectively can do to make sure that the whole Arctic region is safe, including Greenland, to work on that part. There's a lot of work to be done. To make sure that we do basically everything needed on land, sea and air to make sure that we protect that important part of the world and of NATO territory.
So I heard you say that you may not be the most popular because you are saying how important President Trump has been to NATO, getting NATO to move forward not only on defense spending but other issues.
Yes, as I said this morning in a panel, Brett, last year, under his leadership, NATO collectively reached that famous 2%, which we agreed 10 years ago. I asked the room, I said, big countries like Spain and Italy and Belgium and Canada reaching that 2%, would it have ever happened if President Trump would not have been re-elected? No. And then in June in The Hague, we agreed on this 5% defense spending, including the 3.5% on core defense, equalizing with the US. Would that ever have happened if President Trump would not have been re-elected as President 47 of the United States? Absolutely not. And now today, this agreement on working collectively on this deal getting done on the Arctic region, I think we can really commend him for taking that leadership role. He is the leader of the free world. He is the leader of the most powerful nation on earth, the biggest ally in NATO. He is doing exactly what I hope he would do when he was re-elected, knowing him from his first term in office.
What do you say to the critics who look at what has happened in the result of some of the things the president has said, and look at countries like Canada that the prime minister went to Beijing and is making deals with China, France that is welcoming Chinese investment inside Europe, the UK just signed off on a giant Chinese embassy in London. Do you think that there's a change in the way leaders are dealing with China in particular?
Well, of course, it's not up to me to comment on what individual allies are doing in terms of their relationship with China. I think collectively as NATO, we have a position. The position is that we should not be naive. I can tell you, Brett, these huge investments the Chinese are making in the military are not there to organize parades in Beijing. As the military in Russia are not there to organize parades in Moscow. They are there to be used. Russia is using them against the Ukrainians. And China, we know their ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. And again, here it is the United States who is playing a huge role here to make sure that the Indo-Pacific stays safe. And as NATO and the Indo-Pacific, under President Trump's leadership, we work more and more together.
And finally, when you leave today in Davos, you feel optimistic about the situation with Greenland, that you have this framework, that you're going to a next step, even though the Kingdom of Denmark is pretty adamant that they're not relinquishing Greenland?
I think what we achieved today in the talks I had with the President is that we agreed that he is right. And he is right that collectively we have to protect the Arctic region. But also, of course, the US continuing its conversations with Greenland and Denmark when it comes how can we make sure that the Russians and China will not gain access to the economy or military sense of Greenland. I think that was a very good outcome. There's still a lot of work to be done. We'll do it step by step. But of course, working fast, but also with thoughtful diplomacy, we will get this done.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, thanks for the time.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.